Tobacco Products Expo 2019 in Las Vegas at the Kristoff Cigars booth with Jarrid. How you doing, brother?
What's up, man? How are you?
I am doing very well. Now, we've been chatting for a little bit, and just got a little bit of background on you, and of course, your brother, the
Prime Minister of Canada.
Prime Minister of Canada, my ass. Not with that accent, unless unless the family's really spreading around.
What people don't know about Justin Trudeau is he's deep-seated Boston guy. You know, secret Bostonian.
Secret Bostonian.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
We have the same accent. You can tell.
You can tell, and I'm a little surprised because with Trudeau, you got that Boston accent. So we're gonna have to have probably a little talk with a.
It's weird being French in an Irish town.
Yeah,
it's weird.
It is,
not a lot of French American clubs going on in the city of Boston.
How many times did your ass get growing up, right?
Pretty often, you know.
Until you bring some of the guys down from Ontario.
Exactly.
So listen, we've got this San Andres cigar, and if you don't mind, since I'm kind of one-handing this, could you clip me?
Yeah, I don't work here. I don't work here.
Then you're a doctor.
I sell them.
Then you're a doctor.
Exactly.
Then you're a doctor. So I need you to clip me, brother.
I'll cut it for you. I'll cut it for you.
And I don't mean for my brisk, okay?
I'm definitely out on that one.
And a Boston guy knowing what a brisk is a big surprise
too,
shit,
right?
So, hey, this thing smells great, and obviously we talked a little bit. I really do enjoy the Kristoff Maduros. Oh, yeah, and if I'm single-handed. Yeah,
I got you, buddy. I got you.
And you are a true purveyor and a true service member. We're gonna have to get you into the Boy Scouts.
Don't tell. Yeah, you know what? I think anybody on that works for me on my sales team would disagree with you.
Yeah.
My bedside manner is clinically cold.
Well, I love it then. That's clinically cruel is what I get called all the time. So listen, Jarrid, just give me a snapshot of the background of the company. I know that you're not the founder. You came on board at a certain point, but just give me a background since we don't have the founder with us today.
Sure. So the owner of the company, his name is Glenn Case. He's the dude on the sign.
Okay.
Fabulous.
We even got facial recognition on the camera. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, so it's a good image.
It'll automatically tag him.
Yeah, great. That's what we need.
But Glenn was a VP at one of the top 5 banks in the country of marketing, new product development. So he was in high finance in the corporate world. Very successful guy. Worked his way up from repossessing trailers to defaulted loans. Yeah.
Are you serious?
To VP
repossessing trailers?
Yeah, to trailer financing, mobile home. Yeah. Getting shotgun, putting his he worked his way up. Salt of the earth guy.
Okay.
Blue collar guy.
Dig that story.
Worked his way up to being a VP of marketing and new product development for a top bank. After 19 years in the corporate world, got sick of it, decided he would go and help his wife, who was actually a prolific tobacco broker at the time. Her and her father, during what we call the tobacco boom, or the cigar boom, her and her father were independent sales reps for cigars.
And this was what era?
His wife. This was this was late 90s.
Late 90s.
Mid to late 90s.
After that kind of a lull that it had in the mid 90s.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So they started. So she was a broker already, and Glenn trying to figure out, what his next path after retiring from the corporate world would be. Was I'll help my wife in her brokerage, and she was really successful, really smart, still is really successful. And he started working for different companies, and how it worked in the independent world at that time was you'd have 4 or 5 different lines, and you would work and work and work, and they'd be like, "Congratulations, Glenn, you're up 30% this year. Good on you. You're up so much that we can afford to hire somebody to do this full time." So he kept working himself out of a job by doing a good job. And so eventually, what they realized was, I can't keep doing this for other people. I'm going to do it for myself. And of course, Glenn's wife says, what the hell do you know about selling cigars? You're a white guy from Chicago. You don't know anybody down there. So we hooked up with this guy, Rolando Villamil, who's a legend, been in the cigar business for decades and decades. He's forgotten more than we know about tobacco. And he's made, for 14 years, we've made every Kristoff for the most part out of that factory. And
where is that located?
In Santiago, Dominican Republic.
Okay, beautiful.
So we are there. We do 90% of the business out of that factory. Most people never would have heard of it. It's the Von Eycken family owns it. Charles Fairmont Factory, Von Eycken. And where their biggest customer. We have full control over product. Glenn does all the blending. Glenn helps with the tobacco side of things. Every cigar that's ever come from Kristoff has been blended by Glenn himself. And he's actually involved in the blending process. You know, it's not, you know, here, smoke this sample. If you like it, we'll put a Kristoff band on it. Glenn is getting into the tobacco business.
He's like up to his elbows.
He's up to his elbows in it. And like I said, we've been around for 14 years. So Glenn's, I think he's learned something at this point. You know, he's great with the tobacco. We've been very successful, very blessed to be doing the business the way that we're doing it. And I think that's a testament to Glenn's ability to pick up on the tobacco side of the business and become an excellent blender. So cigars are all really well received. We're fully in-house across the United States for the most part.
Now, was there an upswing on that as well, where you had to?
So that's where
I can remember my first Kristoff was probably right around maybe 10 years ago, maybe a little more. Probably shortly after they kicked off, and I got probably a sample.
Yeah.
And you know how it is in the cigar business, and it's been like this for as long as cigars have been around. You know, the banding, there's a whole art thing about banding and the attractiveness and getting, it's marketing. It's basically sales and marketing.
Yeah.
But just the cigar itself, the consistency of the wrapper was just something that appealed to me, that first one that I had. And I've had a few, you know, on and off, and I sample a variety of different cigars, of course. But he was there on the ground floor from conception.
Correct.
It's not like he was just putting a band on somebody else's cigar.
Correct, yeah. He wanted to become an important part of the tobacco business. He wanted to be in it, because let's be honest, you know, VP of a top 5 bank in the country, the guy was successful, he was making money, he didn't need to retire, he's still young, you know what I mean? He wanted to do this. And a lot of us are in this business because we want to be in it. So you can teach everything, but you can't teach give a shit, right? And Glenn gives a shit. And so when I found Glenn, we became friends maybe 7 or 8 years ago. We met at a cigar event. He was talking about wanting to scale the business and hire in-house sales reps, and how that was, he didn't have time to do marketing, travel, blending, and do all of that stuff.
Can't be an octopus.
You can't do it all.
Yeah, you can't do it all. Now, what was your background?
I was an executive for Target and for Bed Bath & Beyond, so I worked for Fortune 500 companies as a merchandising manager, a merchandising executive.
So you didn't have a cigar background.
Not at all.
In business?
Nor did I really have a sales background.
Okay.
You know, I was really in driving product through merchandising and consistency and making sure that appearances of stores look good and everything.
You need that uniformity in those tight, and it's like Starbucks. They burn their beans, right?
Precisely.
I mean, in order to be consistent.
Yeah. So we had our version at both Target and Bed Bath & Beyond of burning our beans and making sure everything was uniform and the stores looked full and impactful. And I never thought it would translate to the cigar business, but Glenn and I became friends. He said, "What do you do?" I said, "I work at Target." He thinks I'm collecting carriages in the parking lot or baskets in the parking lot. Turns out I'm an executive, and he says, "Well, I don't know that I can afford to hire you right now." And I said, "You're probably not." Then I figured I'd never hear from him again. He called me every month or so for like 3 years before I was ready. And he finally says, "You know what, dude? I think I'm ready to move forward on this." And I'm like, for me to do what?" And he's like, "I don't know." And
now, did you enjoy cigars when you were at Target?
I was always a cigar fan. I was always a cigar fan.
Well, from Boston, you almost have to be.
Exactly.
And by the way, the whole bean thing, burning the beans, you can use that.
That's a great thing.
Yeah.
Burn beans.
Burning the beans in Boston.
My mother did that my entire childhood.
Okay, let's not get into the whole Thanksgiving. We just talked about that. Turkeys across the floor and what have you.
But yeah, so when I came on, it was very ambiguous, because the story that Glenn told to me, which turned out to be reality, because that's the kind of guy he is, was, "You'll show me that in-house sales works," because he had never had an in-house sales rep. I had never been a sales rep. "You show me in-house sales works. We'll build it. We'll scale the business the way that we need to scale the business, and it's yours. You know, you're my guy to manage it."
That's almost like putting the cart in front of the horse. Am I right or am I wrong?
But a lot of these companies, I already said it, fuck it.
Go ahead.
A lot of these companies, they hire 6 vice presidents of nothing before they sell a single cigar.
Right.
And that's not what we wanted to do.
Right.
So it was Glenn, our operations manager, Ward, who's a stud. He keeps the business together. And an office person who's changed over the years.
Right.
But now it's Vicky. Shout out Vicky, she's excellent. and it was just the four of us, and I was the only sales rep. You know, we had independent people around. So my market was, they handed me a list of accounts and said, I go sell cigars to these people, and he was like, yeah, and I'm like, okay, and I'm like fucking putting things on my GPS, no business plan, no nothing.
You're just doing like cold calls without really having an experience.
I'm driving to cigar stores saying, hi, I'm Jarrid, I don't have a business card because I don't know what I do here, but I'd like to sell you more Kristoff. And so I just started doing that. And my business, fortunately, because of the wonderful people in New England, my business grew to support another's in-house sales rep. So we hired somebody else, I hired and trained them. Then we hired another one, and then we hired another one, and all of a sudden I got demoted to vice president of sales because I had hired and trained everyone who worked for the company. So
and you basically wrote the book for sales with Kristoff.
Inside our model, our infrastructure, Glenn obviously had a lot of oversight in the beginning because he had been hustling cigars on the side, and then he
for
built,
like 6-7 years.
And then he built his own brand.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for him. So he built his own brand. So Glenn's a strong salesperson as well, obviously.
Just naturally, not from training or education or what have you.
But the infrastructure that we have in place right now for sales is a collaborative effort between me, Glenn, our operations guy Ward, and we developed a system, and I implemented it with our salespeople that I think works really well for us. And we're continually adding to that and changing things and trying to meter out. But the good thing is, because we don't have 12 vice presidents of everything, I can try something, and if it stays chicken shit, I can cut it. If it turns into chicken salad, we move forward with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we have the dexterity as an organization to be able to do stuff like that.
Without having to have a roundtable powwow that lasts for 3 months.
Yeah, or a board meeting or anything like that. It's literally like me and Glenn are drunk in the Dominican Republic, and it's like, hey, why don't we do this thing? And like, oh, you know what? That's a good fucking idea.
Well, that's organic, and that's again, getting back to or stepping back to what you mentioned earlier. Starting off with 6 vice presidents. Those companies, those organizations, and I'm not, obviously we're not going to name anybody, and frankly, I don't necessarily know who they would be.
Right, that's off camera.
No, yeah, but they have another agenda. They're not wanting to make. They probably want to make a good cigar. They want to do good business, but their agenda is not, I want to make the best cigar I can make. It's
and
not
they have
that I
a vested interest in confirming each other. It's confirmation bias.
Yeah.
It's like a classic Harvard business problem. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It is total confirmation bias. These guys who start off and they're building a company, everybody has to be excited, everybody has to be passionate, but nobody gets anything done. They just high-five each other all day, and then a year later they find out they're out of business, and that's not what we wanted to do.
And sometimes when they go out of the business, there's a level of profit in that too, depending on what they've done otherwise. We used to call it the March of the Penguins.
Yeah.
It's like, the president walks out of his office, steps down the hallway, all the VPs start following him out, they go down to have coffee together, and they're all buck doing the same thing.
Exactly. And that's what happens. And so what Glenn and
that's not what's happening with Kristoff.
No, it absolutely isn't. And
even now, even with the growth.
Even with the growth and the way that the company has scaled, we haven't added any new layers of management. It's still me, Ward, and Glenn. And we still make decisions by talking, on the phone. We'll have a conference call, I'll fly to Chicago, we'll sit on Glenn's deck and smoke a cigar, and this is how we make business decisions. And none of us are afraid to challenge one another, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that's because we all have different backgrounds. Ward as an ops guy, Glenn as a marketing guy, me as a sales guy. We all have different backgrounds, and so we all challenge each other. Because we all have different skill sets, we challenge each other in such a way that whatever decision comes out making appeals to marketing, sales, and operations, and those are the 3 branches of government in a strong company.
I love how my subconscious mind meld is working on you. You keep saying challenge for Gear Challenge, of course. Challenge.
Shout out.
So with that, what has been, and I realize you've been with the company about 7 years, what in your mind, in your observation, let's say, even going back before you were on board with the company, what was the biggest challenge for Kristoff's Cigars?
So for us, the biggest operation, I guess it's twofold. There's branding challenges in a business that's highly competitive with no switching costs. I mean, I always like to articulate it as, and this is a gross bastardization of the product, which is driven by passion and nuance and all of that stuff. But as a business guy, in my brain, it's how do I make my $10 dead plants in a tube sell better than other $10 dead plants are too. And that's a really challenging problem with no switching costs. This is one of those industries where it's like, we don't have a loyalty program, neither do any of our competitors really. So it's like, it doesn't cost you anything to buy a Kristoff, to buy something instead of a Kristoff, or to buy a Kristoff instead of something. So how do I capture that purchase when you walk into a humidor and it's just a bunch of dead plants? You know, and so it's marketing, it's branding, but it's also being the kind of people that people want to do business with. It's having a sales infrastructure in place that gives a shit. It's when my biggest problem operationally, branding is a different issue, and that's packaging and education.
And it's like what we were talking
media.
about bands, and that goes back to the 1800s, for God's sake.
Correct.
You know,
and that's the same problem that many companies have in many other industries.
Right. Wine and beer and everything.
Differentiation. So that's a problem that every company in here is trying to solve, and we solve it in our own way. So that's always going to be a problem. That's always on our docket of things to work with. What for my problem, for my situation, it's trying to hire people. Not necessarily because they have a ton of experience, not necessarily because they have a particular skill set, but because they are the kind of people that people want to do business with, because they give a shit. You know what I mean? The tobacco knowledge in this business, from a sales perspective, knowing the nuance and detail of the blend and the product and all of that stuff is incidental to the job that you're doing, which is adding value for the customer. It's selling the product to their end users, selling it to them the way they want it to be sold, following up, adding value at all parts of the chain. And for me, what that's meant a lot of times is hiring people that don't have an industry background. They don't have any bad habits. They can really come up in my system. And if they poop their pants, then I was a bigger part of the pants shitting than they would be if they already had their bad habits. I want to know if one of my guys isn't going to make it to the promised land, it's because I did something wrong, not because they had a bad habit that they carried through. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so everybody that's in our system, one of our guys used to test building supplies for asbestos. He's a microbiologist. One of them was a salesperson for like financial services and mutual funds or something like that. And he sold cars. And was a DJ. My guy in New England was a club manager. It's like these are people that give a shit, that are smart enough to take my system and are smart enough to implement it the way
they come from a variety of backgrounds, and you can kind of homogenize them into what you do with your company.
Exactly. And their habits around sales, around customer service, all of those habits originate from one voice. And that's mine, Glenn's, you know what I mean? It's the company's voice and the vision that we've built.
It's the fact that you allow that input and that round table type, the turkey skittering, running the risk of the turkey skittering across the floor. You run that risk, and you're willing to run that risk, means you're getting valuable feedback from your people as well.
And they are
and
not
they know that they're a player. They know that they're a player. They know that they're valued. They're not just a name with a number.
Yeah, and I've never been, I'm a very clear communicator. I don't pull punches. It's where I came from. It's how I was raised. So for me, it's more about making sure my people, if my guys call me, I'll answer the phone with, you have 15 seconds. And, you know, I might be in the middle of something, I might not be in the middle of something, but they say it'll only take 10, blah, 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 blah. And they get it, and they communicate all their information. I trust them to make the decisions, and again, our organization is all about dexterity, agility. It's our ability to adapt to business problems and create product that plug holes. And a lot of these businesses that we're competing against, that we're stealing market share from, don't have the dexterity to do that. And that really is what has been key to my strategy and to Glenn's strategy and to Ward's strategy, is our ability to just jump into something and either say, you know, it doesn't work, or it works, and then let's move forward. And we push and we get, and I trust my people, my sales guys enough. I take care of them, they take care of me. They will give me the feedback, they'll tell me when I'm being a moron, and alternatively, I feel comfortable telling them that too, you know, and it's a really good, I'm an
Ideally,
empowerer.
that's the best relationship that you can have. You delegate that authority, you give the proper training, you make sure that they've got the best training possible, you delegate the authority, make them responsible for what happens, but also you absorb your own responsibility instead of sloughing it off and making somebody into a goat, you know, a Judas goat.
And
okay, bye.
My phone, and when my phone rings, I answer it. And because my phone only rings when shit's real, you know, when something really good has happened or something really bad has happened, because I trust my guys to make the decisions. If they fucked up, I'll tell them they fucked up. But for the most part, my guys know that they have the dexterity to make the decisions. They need to operate their business, and there's no, in the middle of a deal, we're sitting here, your hand's out, my hand's out, and then where my guys can shake the hand, the other guy says, I gotta call my bonus.
Right.
You know, and that's the difference. We can perform, you know, when the lights are off, you know.
And, you know, consequently, this San Andreas, this is a newly revealed cigar, correct?
Well, that came out at the trade show a little while ago, but that cigar, we've done some repackaging, we've done a lot of stuff to try to make sure that it's good, but that cigar has been in the top 15 cigars of the year in Cigar and Spirits. That's a really well-received cigar, so we keep coming up with new product, but again, like I said, it's supporting the people that support you in the way they want to be supported. If they ask for new product, we come out with something new, but if you have 100 vendors calling on you and they come up with something new every year, you're going to turn into a warehouse for everybody.
Exactly.
You know, so we
just
try to
around robin and just like the spinning door.
Exactly.
So I like the packaging on this. The band is, we were talking about bands earlier. Really well done on the band. Better yet, the taste on this Maduro is just phenomenal, which has been my prior experience with Kristoff Maduros. Anyhow,
thank you very much.
And you know, salute.
No, I appreciate you, man.
Hey, I appreciate you, bro.
Sure thing.
Okay, and all my best, you know, to everybody that you have supporting your team there too.
No, thank you very much.
Take care and travel safe home.
Will do. You too.